Welcome back, episode 2. I spent my 30s on Instagram. It is true, I did. I certainly did. And last week, I pulled that rug right out from under myself. Whew, it's a bit of a gamble. I'm still trying to run the business that was built upon that platform. And that is the truth of the matter. Wish me luck, because I still think it's the right choice. I've been developing and building out this members only section of my website. It's freaking badass. I think it's a portal into all sorts of information and really digestible information and unique ways of looking at things. I think if I was going to give myself a pat on the back, that when it comes to teaching, something I excel at is talking about anatomy and physiology like I'm a kindergarten teacher. And that really resonates with people. And it's makes it easier, even if you're really serious about this stuff, it still makes it easier to process it, digest it, and obtain more and more and more. And then it also gives you these tools of how to convey it to your students. So being able to translate big, heady concepts and ideas in a fun way. Who doesn't want that? Why would you want it to be boring anyways? But that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about that story of how I spent my entire 30s on Instagram and all of the juice of what unfolded, what went down, why it was a thing, what happened, what it was like, how it's changed. But I went to bed last night. I did pull that rug out from under myself last week. And then I've been working really, really hard building this whole members only site on my website and trying to get it out there, not using Instagram and social media. I don't really count YouTube as social media, but not in the way I'm using it. Trying to get it out there. And I had to remind myself, it's only been a week, but I'm one of those people that just feel the fire inside and I get after it and I work so damn hard. And so it's hard. It's hard to wait for the reaction, especially when it's your business. But I got this email this morning. I went to bed kind of stressed out. Like, is this going to work? Oh my God. What am I going to do? How am I going to pay for groceries? They're so expensive. So I woke up to this email. And it says, "Hi, Holly. I'm a teacher in Madrid, and I am also starting to educate movement teachers. Your resources are pure gold. Much love, so-and-so." And man, was that just the little nugget of a message I needed to switch my tune and my tone upstairs, if you know what I mean. And I just felt more motivated and energized. And so I just wanted to say that, for the people that are my students, people that are my student teachers, people that just are movers and shakers and movement lovers and have used my resources. If you're just a human trying to optimize your body and mind or heal, whatever brought you here to me, I just wanted to say you have no idea how much those little nuggets of feedback mean to me, and they're that fuel behind this engine, and just thank you for that. So thank you. All right, but let's get down to it. Let's talk about this. We only have so much time in an episode, and then, you got to wait for the next one. That's fine too, but let's get going. All right, so how did this all begin? We're going to go through the timeline of it. And I kind of like to put this in eras, because Taylor did. What would Taylor do? I'm not like a huge Swiftie fan or anything, but I like her. She's cool. She's smart and talented, and she tries to use her powers for good. Okay. The first thing was the manifestation era. So, my blog on UpsideDownMama.com, first of all, I changed the name of it to the blah, blah, blog. The blah, 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 blog. There's a few things that I've written that are on the public blog. But from here on out, the blah, blah, blog, in any continuation, any additional stories and ones that you haven't seen that aren't on the public one are via that portal. That portal which is the site within my site that I've been working so incredibly hard on, and it's cool. It's cool. It's worth checking out. I'm just going to like pat myself on the back really quickly before we get into this to say that it's only $7 a month or $75 for the year. That $7 is the price of one cup of fancy coffee. These resources are for students and teachers, and there is a lot. There's hundreds of hours of video and written word, and you can schedule one-on-ones. It's endless. I've got yoga flows on there, as well as like this fitness hybrid, as I am really into sports athletics and a personal trainer and a corrective exercise specialist. I'm also a therapeutic specialist, so there's tons of stuff on healing, and I've got a whole myofascial library on there and a nerve gliding library on there. I've got an asana library for every pose you can think of. If you just want to see that pose in action and see its English name, its Sanskrit name, and the basic cues for it. The entire core values, healing and building libraries are on there. So it's just cool. There's even more than that, but I'm just going to stop right now because I don't want to over market you. Just know that it's there and it's worth checking out. Even if you just do 1 month for $7 and you just check it out and see what's up. I'd appreciate it. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. And we can rap. You can, when I say rap, I mean like talk. We can rap about it. And you can send me comments, especially within the blah, blah, blah blog. And let me know other things that you want to talk about or you'd love for me to write about, do a tutorial on, etc. There's many tutorials, there's workshops, there's just inspirational videos, and these all have their very organized categories. So if you wouldn't mind going and just giving it a shot, check it out. Like I said, $7, cup of coffee, and I feel pretty confident that once you have seen what I'm offering, you're not going to want to go anywhere. I feel that confidence. Okay, let's get back to it. Let's get into the story of my 30s. Okay, what happened though to get me to this point? Let's just talk about it really quickly. So I went to college at Washington State University over in Eastern Washington, Pullman. I finished high school on my friends' couches. I was emancipated as a teenager. And I got emancipated and was able to sign on my own financial aid and loans and get myself to college. I got a ride with a friend who was going to the same university. And I'd been taking care of myself for a while, but I was really, really like taking care of myself at that point, obviously. I went to school. When I finished school, I moved with my college boyfriend to Maui. And I started climbing that career ladder the way that we're all supposed to do, right? Like you go to college and you get your first job and then you get a better one and you just move, or you just keep moving up in the same, at the same company, just get higher and higher up that ladder. So that's kind of what I did. I got my first job at This Week Publications working for a tourism magazine. And I was basically selling ads, but also making ads, started playing in that creative department. And then I had a food column I was writing about. I had started in college. I had my own fitness column in our college newspaper in that area. And then I started working with publications on Maui. I got recruited by one of my clients, Kapalua, the city of, and I went and worked in their marketing department. Really cool. Learned a lot of things there too. And then I got to work on the LPGA. After a little tiny hiatus, my ex and I broke up. It was sad. And hard and like confusing. Moved back to the mainland for a few months, and then I came back and I got a job at the radio. That was so fun. Radio era was super fun, and I got to co-host a radio show. I was Holly Rocks with Johnny A of the A Train, classic rock radio show. From there, I got recruited again. So this time it was by Nash International, a water sports company. And they do kiteboarding, windsurfing, stand-up paddle, that sort of thing. At that time, one of our talents was Kai Lenny. Dave Kalama. Super fun. I got to write stories about a lot of these young pro athletes, and I did all of the PR, the newsletters. I edited their entire 400-page catalog. Lots of cool stuff that I did and got to learn in a quick period of time working for Nash International and Haiku. Maui, 2008, the economy crashed. It's really never been the same since, but at that point, I was the youngest one in the company. I was the first to be let go. And that's kind of when my life decided to rearrange. So at this point, I don't know what to do, but I still am taking care of myself, and I don't have anybody that helps out, not in any capacity or way. So I got to figure it out, meat. Figured out meat. Bull Durham reference there. But that's where I was, and no one's going to put food on my table or pay my rent, There's not a family member that I felt like I could reach out to for that. And so one of my neighbors said I should go work on this organic farm up country. So I did. I went and worked on an organic farm up country. That's not so out of reach. I grew up out in the country, and at times, even as a teenager, taking myself to a high school 30 minutes away, I would be alone for maybe a couple weeks and taking care of livestock, llamas, etc., and getting myself tuned from all of my practices as a serious athlete in school and everything. So it wasn't like that out of reach to go and work on a farm. It kind of was like reset, go back to the reset, go back to that fetal position. Let's begin again. Let's go again. So many times in life, I've hit that reset button back. Okay, let's start over. Okay, life take 10. Here we go. How's this one going to turn out? And I do consider this period of time on that farm as a complete life reset, reevaluation. As you can imagine, as an emancipated teenager at the end of high school, to putting yourself through college, not really feeling any sort of support system. Yes, I had my sisters, and my sisters and I are very close, but they're in the same boat as me. So we're all just trying to take care of ourselves and survive. So at this point in life, and up to this point, I don't know that I wasn't making horrible decisions, but I also could have made better ones if I had better guidance too. Luckily, I've never been into drugs, but definitely, I loved wine. I don't drink anymore, but I could have a good time. And I just think that mostly socially, I was awkward, and I didn't know really. I just was awkward and different. I was different than other people. I had a different story. Like, this is part of my story, but there's a whole one that comes before that got me to that point of being emancipated as well, and not having a solid support system per se. So there were a lot of choices I made just trying to figure out how to survive and be on my own and live life and overcome and persevere and all those fun things. So that reset on the farm in Kula, it was kind of a life changing for me. It was a moment to have some guidance. The farmer became kind of like my hanai, my adopted dad. And he gave me a few different, ways of looking at life. He also is the one that introduced me to my husband, the father of my children. But he also encouraged me. I wanted to go to Ethiopia. I had a friend that was out there and inspired me to want to go out there. And I wanted to travel. I'd never gotten to travel. I was too busy trying to just survive. And so he gave me a way of looking at it, not to do it for me or take care of it for me, but a way of having a little baby step plan of how to conquer these things that seemed like they weren't meant for me, that I couldn't do it, not my situation. And I did end up going to Ethiopia for 2 months. And then, my life would take on all of the craziness of being a pseudo celebrity yogi and popular-ish on Instagram and take me around the world. So we'll get there. But at this point, I'd only been to Canada, and that's not a big deal when you live in Washington State. Oh, and I guess, I moved my butt to Maui. That's kind of cool. I was there for a very long time. Never wanted to leave. So I'm on this farm up country and I'm getting this advice and it gets me to Ethiopia and back. And then I'm still working on the farm. And now I'm kind of rethinking this corporate ladder and my goals in life and everything. And then he also introduces me to, my future husband, future father of my kids. And this is going to be a huge change in direction in my life. But before that, there's something I want to share with you that the farmer said to me. And that has also been something that stuck with and changed the way I view things. And that was that, and this may or may not be true. Just because it was said assertively doesn't make it true. Just because people say things assertively doesn't make it true. But I don't care. That's not the point. The point was this concept, this way to look at things. And he said that the average person changes their career, not their job, but their career 10 times in a lifetime. Whoosh. To me, like hearing that in that moment, gave me this perspective that we can continue to begin again and again and again and again and again. And I love that idea because I've had to do that so many times in my life. And if you ever thought that you had just this one path and this one thing that needed to happen, if that didn't happen, like life is over, this perspective changes that. And I have proven it to be true over and over and over again. And I am in one of those moments right now. So that was a pretty big deal. Now, I want to back up just a hair because this is kind of crazy. Just a hair. I'm working at This Week Publications on Maui. I'm going through a devastating breakup because to my young and very vulnerable heart and confused heart and abandoned heart and neglected heart, this heart that's experienced incredible loss, when I lost the first love of my life, it felt like death to me and I didn't handle it well. I'll be honest. I didn't handle it well. I got really depressed for a very long time and I couldn't understand why this felt so much like death. And through a lot of therapy, I realized that because I was literally associating loss with death every time. But regardless, I remember sitting in my office at This Week Publications going through tourist magazines from other companies to try to find new clients I could go and talk to and try to recruit to our publications. And I'm sitting on the floor and I'm still in this relationship, but it's coming to an end. And there's been some really horrible things that have happened. And I admit I didn't handle them well either, but I will say that I was definitely like my heart was broken. And though I didn't make great choices, it was all out of like just pure heartbreak. I just really thought that I loved this person so very, very much. And it was all coming to an end and it was just devastating for me. So no, I did not make the best choices ever, but it was all out of like, oh, my life's ending. I know you've been there. Don't even look at me like that. First loves, young love, whatever. Shut up. I'm sitting on the floor of my office and I'm going through this magazine and I come across this ad. It's a full page ad of this chef and he's like holding a fish and vegetables forward in a garden. This is the garden I would come to work on. This is crazy shit right here. And I look at this picture of this handsome chef holding this food forward in a garden with this full page ad. And I have this mini daydream. I was like, I bet that this is a nice guy. And I bet that he like is a great partner and he's probably like this great dad. And I bet like he comes home to his wife and he's so sweet. And I had this entire daydream of who this person was in this ad and this like that he's this great guy and he's like a committed guy and a loving guy and he treats his family so nicely and kindly and this whole daydream in my head because I was so sad inside about the loss of my current relationship that I was in, but it was coming to an end. This whole sort of manifestation of who this person was. Now that was a moment. And then lots of time and years would go by. And then I would end up working on that same farm, but not putting those things together yet. Not putting those connections together yet. The farmer would introduce me to that chef thinking that we were meant to be, that we would be the perfect match, no matter what our situations were at the time, that we needed to be together. That person I would end up marrying and having children with. Is that not some crazy shit? And then someday, and I wouldn't know it, I wouldn't even put it together that this was that guy for a bit. And then I would realize, oh my God, you are the chef from the magazine, in that moment of despair that I created this story out of in my head. And I'm freaking manifested you. I find that to this day just to be the craziest stuff. Yeah. And we've been together a long time, 15 years, with a little hiatus. But all's well that ends well. What a story, right? So basically, I'm working on that farm. I've went to Ethiopia. Now I've fallen in love with this very handsome chef. And what a life I'm living. He's handsome and he's successful, and I'm so in love, and life is good, and we live on Maui, and it's wonderful. I really wanted to be a mom. I am one of those people that I was like, in college even, I was like, I'm going to be a CEO and an amazing mom. No, I don't have to choose. And yes, I'm going to be both. Like, I never wanted to just be one or the other. I wanted to be amazing and great at both. To be successful and independent, because independence and success equals freedom. And that's what I desperately wanted, was freedom. And I wanted to be this amazing mom because I had the most amazing mom for 4 years of my life. And then she passed away, and I desperately missed her, and I miss her to this moment. And she passed away when she was my age than I am right now. So that's what I wanted. I wanted to be a mom. And in this moment, I'm married to this handsome chef that I am so in love with. And I've become a mom, and I have my babies on Maui. And that's what I was doing. And I was raising babies all the time. His career was very demanding. It would take him away for weeks. But that's okay, because I was on Maui with my babies. I was so that was just like, if I could go back to any moment in time, maybe that one. And revisit and just walk around the garden with my baby in my little pack. So that's where I was at. And then I had my daughter next. And so my son was about 2 years and 2 months when I had my baby girl. And then we get to the point that I had kind of mentioned in episode number 1, where my handsome chefy husband I was like, you should get Instagram. I wasn't on any social media. I had the tendency to just leave my phone on a counter and maybe not pick it up for the rest of the day. That's kind of where I was at in life. I was in present bliss of my personal life, and I didn't need anything else. And then I got introduced to the gram, and then I got through that gram of the window it was to share baby photos, but that's where I found and started to really explore yoga. I had gotten into yoga because I had done a triathlon when my son was 6 months old. So 6 months after my first baby, I had done a triathlon. Well, I guess I have to tell you the story of also my surf injury that happened when I didn't know I was pregnant with my son. I was out surfing with my new handsome chef boyfriend, and I got a really bad surfing injury. This is the scar from it. So I know that's a little out of focus, but there you go. There's a scar that still exists from it. This is the part that didn't make it. That's a little explosion of death. I didn't know I was pregnant, but I was in trauma 2 on Maui Memorial, and I was really close to my femoral artery, and I had lost a lot of blood, and it was sketchy. And recovering from that injury is when I found out I was pregnant. And so I had to build a baby while I repaired my body. And then I birthed that baby, and 6 months after my son was born, I named him Calder because it means rough waters. I wanted him to always know what a tough little cookie he was, because even at that point, the doctors were like, we'll see what happens. It may or may not make it because of this trauma. So I named him Calder so you'd always know what a tough cookie he was. And, the the name Calder has two meanings: trickling brook and rough waters. First of all, let me tell you that my son is obsessed with fishing, so that fits. And he also was born on the cusp of Libra and Scorpio. That also fits with the trickling brook and the rough waters. And this is very much him and his personality. He is very much a trickling brook and rough waters. So that's a very interesting coincidence as well in my life. I go and I do a triathlon to get myself like back in shape and back into sports and stuff and activity. Something, my hips kind of messed up. I had done the Maui Marathon a couple years previously, and my hip was like a little weird from that too. And so I think it just kind of like re-triggered it. We're driving home from the triathlon. We go through Paia. I've been past this studio many times in Maui Yoga Shala. Many times have I driven past it. My post office box is right across the street from it. And I tell my husband, pull over. I just want to go and grab their schedule. I've dabbled in yoga before. I took a class and wrote about it in college for that college newspaper, but I had never really done it. I'd never really been beyond, say, a VHS tape. Yeah, I just aged myself so much. Or a DVD. Let's improve that a little. I grabbed a schedule, but the owner happened to be sitting out on the porch. Oh, man. This is another influence in my life. She probably doesn't even know how much. Nadia, she's crazy. And I say that in the most endearing of ways. She was sitting on the porch. I didn't know she was the owner or anything at that time. Beautiful Brazilian lady. And she said, "Hi, are you going to come to one of our classes?" But in an accent I'm not even going to try for. And I said, "Well, I don't know. I really like more intense sports. I'm not sure. I just want to schedule, see what you guys got going on." She was like, "Come to my 9 a.m. class. Come to my 9 a.m. class tomorrow, okay?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I was like, "I don't even have any clothes. Like, what do you wear?" She's like, "It doesn't matter what you wear. You can wear what you're wearing right now." I was like in some cutoff shorts or something. It's like, "Okay, I accept your challenge. I accept your challenge." And I came to her 9 a.m. class in Paia. I think I did my very first arm balance in my very first class. I was hooked. I was obsessed. Started looking things up on YouTube. I came across the legendary, what was it by? Gosh, I can't even remember who made it, but Brioni, right? I think that's her name. And she did this crazy, amazing video. She's like doing yoga in her underwear with her husband still sleeping in bed. And she does like the presses and landings and blah, blah, blah. If you are into yoga, you probably know the video I'm talking about. It's super legendary. We'll just leave it at that. And I was like, that's what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I want to learn how to do all this stuff. And since then, Instagram had, opened my eyes to a path of like following people that were learning how to do these things or teaching you how to do these things. And I just got super obsessed. I went down the tunnel. So Instagram was no longer just for sharing photos of the babies. Now it was this like portal into this world that I wanted in. I started doing all those challenges, following as many people as I could, making as many connections as I could. And I will say that it also, because I was alone with my babies a lot, this was a really easy way on my 2x6 foot mat to practice and be active and also have a social life in a weird way. So, I mean, the beginning of Instagram was really, really important to me, and I needed it, and I respect that. And it made so many different opportunities, connections. And what I'm building today it was built off the back of that and built on the back of that. So I have nothing but respect for that time period. So let's say that this was 2013, because that's the year my daughter was born. And I turned 30 the day she was born. We have the same birthday. So that was really, when she was 3 months old is when I really started going down this tunnel. After my son was born is when I started physically going to a studio, and Nadia really became the teacher I attached to. She pulled me out of my shell in ways I didn't even want to happen at times. Nadia, "Holly, get up here, dance with me." "No, Nadia, no. I sit at the back of the room for a reason." All right, we're approaching our half hour, so we're going to pick this up in the next episode. I will see you there. Thank you for once again letting me blah, 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 talk your ear off. And we'll rap about what happened next. This story is a good one. Stay tuned.